Okay, now we're
No,
live.
it's
Okay.
Oh,
No,
are we
it says
live?
live.
Oh.
It says
Oh,
live.
okay. All right, we're live.
Hello.
All right.
Hello
Hello.
and welcome. Uh, welcome to
That.
our what's this show called? Where'd you go?
What? I'm right here.
Yeah, what's it called? What is this show called? Tell me about it. Tell me what we're doing.
This is Arrested Development season 5.
Season 5? We're on season 5 already?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
What did we do all day? Just watch Arrested Development. Welcome to the Big Dumb Podcast.
I can't speak for you, but you know.
I've never seen it. Welcome to our Big Dumb Podcast. This is episode 3. This is the third time we've done this, so we know how to do this.
Yeah, in theory.
I am Fourth's famous user on the website, filmfiction.net, fanfiction.net, archiveofourown.org, and every other website on the internet. Please introduce yourself, my friend.
I am Floydien. I don't exist.
Welcome to our Pink Floyd podcast.
Can we actually?
We're here to talk. We're here to talk about the album "Animals" by Pink Floyd.
Never mind. I'm no longer interested.
Definitely a classic. So we're here to talk about My Little Pony fan fiction and everything that goes along with it. Specifically, at least right now, the fan fictions of our good friend, the Short Skirts and Explosions.
Yep.
And we have 2 fics that we have selected for you today that we think you would love to hear about because we love to read them.
Yeah.
And so,
I don't know what else to add.
I don't know. I'm just spitballing. So,
the
first fic,
we should probably tell we should probably tell the server that we went live.
I said it on the server.
You got one reaction.
That's okay. Anyway, so the 2 fics that we're going to be talking about today are Refraction, which came out in late 2013, I think, and Fear and Trembling.
2014, but yeah.
It came out in late 2012, and Fear and Trembling, which came out in December 2012, and they're both, kind of hefty 20,000 word fics, well, pretty good. And I think, I don't know if they need any more introduction than that. I think we'll start with Refraction.
Yeah. All right. So Refraction's a really cool story. I don't know. Are we doing spoilers again for these? Should we say spoiler warning?
Oh yeah.
Now?
Oh yeah. So, like many of Skirt's fics, these fics are centered around particular ideas and twists and turns and fun stuff like that. We're gonna be going all into detail about that. So, spoiler warning: if you haven't read these fics, too bad.
Yeah.
Or if you're listening later, for some reason, then maybe go read them first.
You can pause the video here.
You can pause the video here. You can even pause us live. We'll keep talking, but you won't hear it. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So
now that,
yes.
Go for it.
All right. So Refraction. Yeah. Yeah. So Refraction came out in October 2014. It focuses around I don't know. I guess it focuses around Twilight. I guess technically. And what's interesting about this story is that it's essentially the same scene in how many chapters is this? 9. It's the same scene. What?
Like 8. Well, I mean, it does the same scene like
7. I think.
Times
7,
something like that.
Is it 8? I guess it technically no. It's 7. It's 7. I think it's 7.
I don't know.
It's 7.
No,
I'm gonna say 7. I'm gonna say 7.
Because I count the second to last chapter as
no, but it's not. It doesn't. It's not even.
Anyway, continue.
Anyway. Yeah. So what's interesting again about this is that it does the same. It's the same scene written multiple times in a row for different chapters. And with these little things that are missing each time. So the first chapter starts with.
They're not that little.
It starts off that way. starts off. Well, you told me you couldn't even figure out what was wrong with the second chapter.
Oh well, I figured it out at the end because that's when you figure it out.
Wow, I mean, maybe. Anyway, so it starts
Go on.
off with the Twilight going into Sugar Cube Corner to meet all her friends and everything. And you know, they're who's there? AJ and
It's AJ and Fluttershy and
yeah. So
it's
they're
just
there,
AJ.
and so, yeah. So Twilight goes in to meet them, and you know, she kind of talks with them. She's talking about a report that she's writing about um, diamond dogs, which is really interesting actually, because one of the things that I really like about his writing in general is that he always finds ways to put in little subtle world building things.
Oh yeah.
No matter, like, even if the story is completely unrelated to that, it's just little tiny details that like are fleshed out.
Yeah.
About the world, and so she's talking about a report that she's doing on friendship negotiations with the Diamond Dogs, and she's like, "Oh, you know, I've got all the notes that Rarity gave me," and I think later she talks about how, you know, really all they know about the Diamond, like the culture as a whole, is just like the one little interaction they've had, which was
Rarity got captured and whatnot.
Yeah, back in season 1 that happened. Which is still like one of my favorite episodes ever. That's a discussion for another time. Anyway, so
episode.
What'd you say?
Oh no, I love that episode. It was always one of my favorites in season 1.
Yeah, it's a
Rarity,
really good one. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so she's talking about that a little bit. Pinky comes over and is her usual kind of goofy, random self. You know, the Twilight gets I think it's like a root beer or something. So they all get drinks. And then and then they're talking about the gala actually. And they're talking about how, whether or not they want to go this year. You know, they're like, oh, the first time they went, things were kind of catastrophic. That was the season 1 finale. This is before, I think, that because they went a second time in the show, right? With like the smooths.
Yeah, this was before that.
Yeah.
And can I just say, I love Skirts has used the Grand Galloping Gala in so many different ways during all of the fics that he's written. I just love how it just keeps going back, because basically, because I've read all these Skirts fics, it's kind of become like a flashpoint in my mind, and it is, the culmination of season 1 and getting to know these characters and them being friends. But it's just such like there's so many different things you can do with it that I wouldn't have even thought of.
Yeah.
With Ostro and with Apple Dashery and other fics too.
Austria.
I swear, I said Ostro.
Yeah. Wait. What? What happened in Austria?
Ostro?
What did they? Oh, maybe that's different spoilers. I don't even remember that.
Oh, it wasn't the gala exactly, but it's just kind of like that season 1, season 2, like the gala, and then just kind of that space in there. But
I see.
Just kind of the ways that, like, the things between, like, the gala and Discord and just all of that. And
yeah, okay. I see what you're talking about now. Yeah. Anyway, so they're talking about. Yeah, no, it's very interesting. Yeah, and he does do that a lot, where he takes, he sets a lot of his stories like in that little gap. That's a really kind of a cool thing. So anyway, so back to the story. So they're talking about going to the gala. Twilight mentioned something about, how, if she didn't have Spike around, she'd never get anything done. Because she's so busy doing like her report and other work, the library, RAP library, all the time. And then Dash comes kind of swooping in as she does. And she's all like, "Oh, we're gonna go to a wrestling show." Once again, something he does, something Skirts includes a lot of in his stories.
I had totally forgotten this had that in there.
Yeah, there's always like some wrestling thing. There was a whole Apple Loader had a chapter about wrestling. Yeah, it did.
I have not read Apple Loader yet, but I will have to do a future episode.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I don't know. He makes a lot of references to, a lot of wrestlers in a bunch of different stories. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any other ones, but they definitely exist. So she's like, oh, there's gonna be. I think someone makes a comment about stallions and spandex, which is pretty funny.
Right.
Anyway, yeah. So, but Applejack's like, oh, we gotta like, come on, like we're all friends. We gotta go. The gala only happens like once a year, and Dash is like, oh, fine, whatever. You guys are my friends, I guess. And then Pinky comes back, and then it's right. And then Rarity and Spike finally come in with a bunch of just like fabric, just like a bunch of like silk. I think it's specified.
Yeah.
And and then Rarity starts talking about like the traffic they're into, but also how it's the fabric she's going to be making the gala dresses out of, and everyone and all the other of the main six are like, oh, you're so generous, you shouldn't have done that. And Rarity's like, oh, well, fuck you, that's my element. So Pinky tells a terrible joke about a whale and a dolphin that is that is very bad. I will not be repeating it here. Stop this at once. Yeah. So, and then Twilight talks a little bit more about her report that she's doing. Flutters is like, like they're probably fine. I think kindness can be found in any creature.
Yeah.
And then Twilight's like, yeah, and also Spike is amazing, and Spike is like all blushy, and because Rarity's there and it's all blushy and everything. And then Twilight just kind of takes off. She's got to get her report done. And when she gets home, Rarity gives her like these silk samples to put down. So she puts them down, and she starts, I think, reorganizing bookshelves. And then someone says her name, right. and she's Twilight's standing there in the dark, and then she sees a pair of eyes light up just out of the shadows. It says a tall figure with outstretched wings standing just beyond focus. And she's like, oh, like, is it Celestia, is it Luna? But the voice doesn't really respond, and she just asks her if she's happy. And Twilight, I don't think, knows how to respond at first. So, are you happy? And Twilight says, oh, I mean, of course I am. Of course, why wouldn't I be happy? And whatever shadowy figure is in the shadows just doesn't respond, and so Twilight's like, oh, like, who are you? And just as she's saying that, there's a beam of magic, or it says bright light, but it's some sort of bright light, basically hits her full onto the chest, and it says she shrieks, instantly burning. Her body slammed back in the back wall of the library, and that's the end of chapter 1. So it's a very it kind of escalates like real quick at the end.
Yeah.
In chapter 2 is almost word for word identical, but if you compare the first 2 chapters to each other, every mention of Spike, every reference made to Spike, anything that ever involved Spike has been just completely eliminated from all the dialogue, which is very interesting. And I think someone pointed out a long time ago that the chapter name of the first chapter is it's just a spark with underscores between every one of them, and the second chapter is the same. It's just a spark, except the first S has been replaced with an underscore. Yeah. And I think someone pointed out that the S maybe stood for Spike, for example.
See, I did think that.
Yeah.
And the next chapter made me think that holds up, but then as you go along, that kind of
it does peter off. So yeah, I'm not sure whether it's just coincidence, or maybe he's tried that then he kind of realized, like, wait, I can't do this, and just gave up.
Right.
Yeah. So, but second chapter is again almost word for word. At the very end, it's a little bit different. Twilight, instead of saying, oh, of course, like, why wouldn't I be happy? She just says, like, yes, I'm happy, and it's a slight dialogue change. Why wouldn't I be? I stare coldly.
Isn't there something different with the library too? Like, isn't it?
Say that again.
Isn't there something different with the library? Isn't?
Oh yes, that's right. So because Spike does not exist in this chapter, I guess. She, instead of having just kind of like some books that can use to rearrange, it says the entire front room was in disarray. There's huge leaning towers of books. There's a lot of scrap paper all over the place.
Right.
Actually does not even have an assistant at the library. It's not that Spike was like replaced with someone. It's just that role. That role never got filled. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, the same thing happens at the end. Beam bright light soars out, hits her full on the chest, and then we're on to chapter 3. Chapter 3 is interesting, and what Forrest was saying was with the next chapter that holds up. The R is missing from Spark, and any mention made of Rarity is no longer in there. When this is interesting because Twilight's still writing her report about the Diamond Dog, like the local Diamond Dogs, but now she doesn't have any notes or anything about them because Rarity doesn't exist, so she couldn't have gotten kidnapped by them in the first place. So she talks about, it would help if I knew anything about the Diamond Dogs, and AJ's like, oh, do you have any books? And Twilight's like, I barely have any resources. She asks Flutters, and Flutters like, I don't know. Animals are one thing, monsters are another, which is a very interesting sort of dialogue change. Because in the first chapter, she was, I believe kindness can be found in all creatures, but there's like because because Rarity wasn't around to get like kidnapped and everything by them, there weren't really, there's still really kind of the Diamond Dog is kind of like an unknown sort of, I don't know, entity, I guess.
Right.
And so there's really kind of a big distinction now between them as like a somewhat intelligent sort of race, and then flat out monsters. It's a very interesting thing. Yeah. So in the third chapter, they talk more about the gala, but they're kind of all none of them really want to go. They don't really have what? Sorry.
Didn't they like not go to the gala the first year? Like, I thought that.
Oh yes, yes.
They hadn't gone to the gala, and they didn't have dresses because dresses were expensive. They didn't really have the money for it. But Twilight was like, I could probably get us in there, because Celestia's like,
Right. Yeah. You're right. Exactly. Yeah. So instead of talking about, it seems like just yesterday we were having the night of our lives. It says, it seems like just yesterday they were posting banners about it all over town. Which is really interesting. But again, it's the same exact setting. Not as much word for word this time because now there's 2 characters missing. But yeah, so they don't. Yeah, the same conversation about wrestling happens, and they all kind of want to go to that because it's less expensive, and they might as well.
To do. Yeah.
Exactly. Pinky makes some joke about El Donkey, and I don't get it. I'm not really in the wrestling scene. But whatever. Yeah, and I think that and that joke I think actually replaces the whale dolphin joke in the first couple chapters.
I'm sad to see that go.
Are you really?
It was like a sea joke, like the ocean.
Oh. Anyway, so Twilight still has to do like her report and everything. So she kind of goes back home, and the library is kind of still a mess. But at least she wants to go to the wrestling thing now, or wherever that was. I forget that was said. But anyway, but the voice comes again, but this time the voice is, "Are you happy now?" As if it's almost testing Twilight, like as if it's like doing something to her, like on like a purposeful kind of malicious sort of intent going on. But Twilight's still, she's kind of, I'm not sure apprehensive is the right word, but she's a little bit more anxious, I think, this time. But she tentatively responds yes. And then the beam of light comes and hits her in the chest and runs the chest forward. Basically, it's kind of a recurring theme.
Yeah, it
But the fourth chapter
kind of
is
noticed that.
what? Yeah, the fourth chapter is the most interesting, I think, out of the ones we've gone through.
I have to say,
Yeah.
the fourth is always the most
All right,
interesting.
listen. We're trying to do a real serious business podcast here.
I'm completely treating this with seriousness and
Are you?
respect, and yeah.
And okay, all right. Anyway, anyway, this chapter is interesting. So in this chapter, all the names are different, and Dash is missing in this chapter completely. Twilight is now Lone Star. Flutters is now Cantershy, and Applejack is now Apple Jewel. And their personalities are like.
There's one more.
Oh yes, there is.
There's one.
There's one more. Pinky is now referred to as Pinkamena.
There we go.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, but what I was gonna say was the characters are like really different in this chapter. Lone Star, aka Twilight, is very much like early season 1 Twilight, who is very kind of socially kind of awkward and shy.
Right.
Very and AJ is very much like businessy. She talks a lot about the stocks in her Aunt and Uncle Orange's company, which is interesting. I forget if they're ever actually mentioned again in the show beyond that episode where
I don't know.
I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting to see that that throwback, honestly, because I had forgotten that was like even a thing in the show, like her backstory, kind of before the rain boom and all that. Yeah, so Applejack's reading like a newspaper, and Flutters has short hair or short name.
Her name is Cantor.
Whatever. She has short hair, and they're all friendly, but they don't seem like friends in this chapter, which is interesting. Pinky especially, or Pinkamena especially, is very much. It says straight pink hair. She's glaring.
She's just the waitress. She doesn't.
Yeah, she's just a waitress. She's not even. They don't really even know her. Beyond, I think some gossip that Apple Jewel overheard at the day spa or something. What's interesting a lot to me is it says here that Cantershy, she says, I'm not exactly an expert on animals, which is, very interesting because obviously the rain boom didn't happen at all. So they never really got to fully realize like their talents and everything.
Well, that really explains all of this, doesn't it?
What do you mean?
Like Lone Star, just the way like they got their cutie marks. I assume, like Apple Jewel, like she stayed in Manhattan, or Cantershy,
Yes, exactly.
it says in the chapter that she changed her name to Cantershy because she couldn't fly.
And she was getting teased. And all that.
Yeah. They have the whole Fluttershy. What is it? Fluttershy can
hardly fly.
What's the chant? Fluttershy can hardly fly. There we go.
Yeah.
And Pinkamena makes fun of her for this.
Which is again very unlike. Yeah.
It's very much one of these alternate universe where they didn't have the rain boom, but Rainbow Dash isn't there and Rarity isn't there, and also their lives are not as good.
Yeah, and what actually I think is very interesting to me is that Lone Star points out to Apple Jewel, she says, if you were as dependable as you were brutally honest, then you wouldn't have to treat the newspaper as your only friend, which I thought was interesting because, she's still very honest, but it's a very different sort of...
Yeah.
There's not as much tact, I don't think, anymore.
I would say there's no kindness or generosity in that honesty.
Yeah. Anyway, so...
She's not loyal.
Yeah, but that basically it causes. Yeah. So Pinkamena yells at Cantershy. Apple Jewel's like, "Bitch, whatever." And Lone Star kind of goes after Cantershy, she kind of books it out of Sugar Cube Corner. But obviously Lone Star can't find her at all because they're not again super super close friends like they are
Hmm.
in the show or anything. So she's kind of depressed, and Lone Star walks back to the library, and again that voice kind of calls out to her in the library, and the voice again asks, are you happy now? And Lone Star, she's just kind of sitting there, and he just kind of goes, yeah. And then the voice kind of, and then the deathly beam of light and all that. Um,
Hmm. She dies.
let's see. Yeah, am I rambling? I feel like I'm rambling a lot.
No,
This is bad.
we're getting near the end, so it's like,
We are getting to the, yeah, that's true. Okay,
don't
yeah.
worry
So then
about it.
next chapter, Pinky's gone. Now it's, instead of Sugar Cube Corner, now it's like a generic sort of diner setting.
Hmm.
Honestly, between this chapter and the last chapter, there's a lot that's the same. Not
They're very
necessarily
similar.
in the, huh?
They are very similar. It
Yeah,
just
there's
ends a
similar.
similar
Not,
dynamic.
yeah, it's similar dynamic. Not as much dialogue. Well, not as much, similar as far as dialogue. But yeah, very very much the same dynamic. It's still, Apple Jewel, Cantershy, and it seems like they're slightly less friendly than they were before.
Yeah, there's a
Um,
little. I think Apple Jewel is a little more prim and proper.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
It's actually funny. It almost looks like almost like just reading her dialogue. It almost sounds like she's taking on like Rarity, sort of
oh,
like like
absolutely.
yeah, because oh, it's don't call me AJ, it's uncouth, and all that.
I'm
So
sure that was a treat for Skirts to write.
yeah. Yeah. So for the most part, I'm gonna kind of think. I think I'm just gonna kind of skim over this. They're very, uh, you know, they're very similar chapters. I think the one thing I will mention is, um, you know, Apple Jewel and Lone Star very much kind of fight over Cantershy. They both
Right.
like, yeah. Because apparently, I guess it says here that AJ and Cantershy were like friends very early on, and
Hmm.
Lone Star's like, oh, maybe if you were maybe if you were more of a friend earlier on, I wouldn't be playing so hard, I wouldn't be trying to play catch up so much,
Right.
um, with her. Yeah, and we
And
go into brutal honesty again. And, yeah.
I think Candershy is more anxious here.
Yes.
She
Yeah.
seems a little, like that because Sugar Cube Corner isn't there. Like even if like Pinky isn't their friend, like it seemed like, oh, there's like this grounding, like, oh, this is kind of Ponyville, it's home, it's whatever. But it seems
Yeah.
like because it's like a faceless diner, it's like, oh, that's kind of gone. She doesn't feel as comfortable. There are more ponies in there. It's kind of louder. They kind of have to talk louder to talk over the sound of those ponies.
Hmm.
It's a similar
Yeah.
chapter, but it kind of loses that sense of home a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. It feels more like a kind of like a generic, yeah, yeah, exactly.
Place.
Lose that sense of home. Yeah, place. But throughout these chapters, Lone Star or Twilight, whoever you want to say,
Hmm.
they're very much persistent about trying to go to the gala, and they're oh like we're friends, we need to help each other out.
Hmm.
Apple Jewel's like, bitch, no, because I mean almost verbatim, not quite. Uh,
I can relate.
um, what?
I can relate.
Okay. Um, yeah. So yeah, and the best part of this chapter is Apple Jewel gives a lecture on friendship to Lone Star,
Right.
which is very interesting. Because she's like, oh, um, his only mark in the social circles is the one day at age 7 where she accidentally spilled purple ink across her older brother's guard uniform, and
Hmm.
Lone Star's kind of like, and then yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
one thing I do want to note that I don't think has
yes,
been mentioned up to this point,
sure,
and I don't think it's ever actually explicitly said in the story, but I feel like it's strongly implied that starting on, I believe it's the 4th chapter when Rainbow is gone, Twilight is
hmm,
not Celestia's student.
right, yes, that's correct.
Um,
That's correct. I did forget to mention that.
she is studying magic, but the report that she's writing, it's not for Celestia. I believe it's just for whatever school sort of thing that she's doing. But yeah, And I think that kind of goes into the, oh yeah, she didn't pass the entrance exam. She's not Twilight Sparkle. She's Lone Star. She probably only has 1 star on her butt, not 6 of them or 7 or however
yeah.
many there are.
Yeah.
So just thought that's
Yeah.
worth mentioning, even though it's not really
sure.
ever explicitly stated in the story, but
yeah, but it's true. Yeah, and that is, and again, I think that goes back to Dash's removal for sure. What was I going to say? Oh yeah. So at the end, the ending of this chapter I think is actually the most interesting. It instead of the voice coming out and asking if she's happy, and Twilight being like, yeah, I guess I'm happy. She just kind of like Lone Star kind of just like loses it and just trying to and like basically charges the figure, which
right.
this sort of implies that she maybe is like remembering like the previous chapters that this figure was there, which is interesting. And that's a little bit, it's subtle. It's a little subtle here, but that'll become more apparent in the next couple chapters, where she's like, please no more and all that. So the flash of light, and now we're back here, and Apple Jewel's gone. So now it's just Cantershy and Lone Star. And this chapter is actually really awesome because it really goes into a dynamic that I don't. And granted, I have not caught up on the show even sort of remotely, but it's not a dynamic I really kind of remember seeing like really well explored in the show, which is just Twilight and Fluttershy basically together.
Right.
Which is, and it's really kind of an interesting.
I think there was a recent episode from the last season that had
okay, well,
the both of them in it.
Okay, well, I mean, like I said, I haven't watched. Was it what season are we on now? 8.
7 was the one that just happened. I don't know, an 8 is coming out, but
okay. Well, I think I'm like halfway through 6. I think.
You're like on season 3, I think.
How dare you? But yeah, so they're supposed to meet up at the diner, Lone Star and Cantershy, but Lone Star can't find Cantershy in the diner, and eventually finds her kind of like just outside, and like kind of curled up on a bench, and they kind of Cantershy was like, oh, I couldn't go inside. There were too many folks who were gonna laugh at me and everything, and Lone Star's trying to be reassuring. It's like, no, like they weren't gonna laugh at you. You have to stop expecting the worst out of everybody. So she tries to comfort her, and eventually they kind of agree that they're gonna kind of go for a walk somewhere. And Lone Star kind of is like, you're my best friend. You're like my only friend here. I care about you a lot. And they start kind of walking and talking. Lone Star's kind of going off about like the gala. She's like, oh, I'll certainly feel like a princess for a night. I don't know why I'm so bent on attending. Like, I'm not gonna have, I'm not gonna have that much money to go, but I'd love to go. So she kind of keeps talking about that. Eventually, Cantershy interrupts and is like, why do you hang out with me at all? I'm not special. I'm not fun. I'm not exciting.
Right.
But when you showed up, you were brand new, and you stuck by my side. You've stuck by my side, and you've been like really friendly. And at times, I think I'm the only reason you even stay in this town. And Lone Star is kind of taken aback, and she's like, "Well, isn't it obvious? You're my friend." And you are the nicest, gentlest, most sincere like pony I've ever known, and no matter how like squeamish or uncomfortable you may be on the outside, there's something that cannot be erased. We're all here to make connections to each other, and what's interesting about this, I think, is like it's a little romantic here almost. The way that whole kind of, I don't know if soliloquy is the right word, but the way this whole kind of block is described. You're the reason I get up in the morning. I cannot even to pretend to imagine just how empty, how purposeless, and she kind of trails off. You mean so much to me. It breaks my heart to see you let the world shove you into the corner.
Right.
Yeah, it's a really powerful piece of writing that I really really like. That I
Yeah.
completely forgotten that was even in the story because I don't think I've read it since it came out, to be honest.
Hmm.
Uh, but in Lone Star, it's kind of like even though we didn't get to really go to the diner today and work on your social anxiety, we'll try again. And yeah,
Hmm.
and it kind of so she walks Canterbury home and just kind of drops her off at her house. And then the voice comes, and Lone Star says, please no more, end it.
Oh,
Um,
I just want to interrupt here
yes,
just
yes,
for a moment, to note
yes.
something. There's one part in when they're talking together where
Hmm.
Canterbury asks Lone Star what she's gonna do once Canterbury is gone,
Oh yeah.
which really struck me in this story. Just kind of, I love those, like, oh, it references the narrative without actually being a reference to the narrative. I don't know. It
Mhm.
just really like hit me like, oh god.
Yeah, I skipped over that by accident. I had that in my notes, but yeah, it's a really powerful kind of thing for sure. Um, so at the end, the voice comes and Lone Star's, please no more, end it. Um, and the bright beam comes and everything. Um, the next chapter, which is basically like not necessarily the last chapter, but essentially the last chapter of the story,
Hmm. Hmm.
is it's just Lone Star now. She's just in Camelot, doing her research on the Diamond Dog report, and this chapter doesn't really have dialogue except for the very end. But
Right.
it's a really kind of if people like Skirts' older stuff where it goes into very like kind of heavy descriptions and that sort of thing. This is like the chapter where it does that.
It
Um,
really explores this vision of her life without others, and it's very lonely.
it is very lonely, and it's like the words he uses, like everything is just kind of miserable, and there's a lot of like gusts of wind, and it's chilly, and um, yeah, and I think there's one point where it says that she's reading something, and she doesn't have a voice in her head um, that she can like hear because she's never talked enough at once to actually hear her like to hear a voice in her head, which
Right.
is that's like really just depressing. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, so she kind of goes home and she's like looking at her stuff, and she tries to have dinner, but she's just not hungry. She doesn't really know how much time has passed, that she's just kind of been living kind of like this in like this little kind of apartment
Hmm.
in the city. But the end of the chapter goes with the voice again, and it's are you happy now? And she says, and Lone Star says yes again, even without everyone, even without all of her friends, she's happy. And she says this is not all I am is her friends. Like she is not her friends. She is like her own thing. Um, you cannot take away my hope. I'm meant to be more than this, to have more than this. And it goes into almost like background pony levels of like kind of you know like philosophy. And um, we are harmony, we are love. With all that I am and all that I will ever be, I love you, and I trust that each and every one of you are there waiting for me, and I will forever wait for you. It reminds me a lot of that one, like really, I don't know if it's famous at this point, but it's a really kind of the infamous quote from BP. I think it's like, I love and adore you and cherish you with my dying breath, and I forget how it ends.
Hmm.
Something darkness abyss. I don't know. Um, but it reminds me a lot of that. And
Right. Yeah.
eventually the voice kind of says, the voice says, thank you. I knew that you and you alone would restore my hope. And it's revealed actually that that voice in the shadows was actually a future version of Twilight, who's, Alicorn and everything. I lived for so many years in shadow. I had always assumed that chaos triumphed. Um, and the voice basically says, I needed to know that I needed to know that it was that harmony would be, kind of still there, even if it wasn't just even if your friends were not. Um, and you know, it's a very interesting twist on like the immortal, you know, Twilight outlives all her friends
Mm.
sort of thing. That's yeah, like, and there's so many of those stories, just so many. But I really like this one because it's just so, it turns it on its head. I think it's so like
Oh,
clever and
absolutely.
unique, and it's just, I don't know,
Because
it's really
it
cool.
doesn't present itself as, oh, here's Alicorn Twilight and she's swimming past her
Right.
friends. It
Hmm.
shows present day Twilight and her dealing with that.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and then so then the next chapter is it's basically Twilight in the library. She's like, it's so like whatever spell or time warping thing was happening is just, it's been vanished. She's back to herself. All her friends are there when she runs into Sugar Cube Corner. Everything's fine, and Twilight's, you know, I love you guys, and I appreciate you so much, and everything. And then the very last chapter is way in the future, with future Twilight, and you know, it kind of ends there, with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've talked about this for way too long.
Oh, it's all good.
We have,
I think you
yeah,
gave a pretty good description of what happens in the story, and I think we went into a lot of the meat of it.
yeah,
I, I don't know if I have anything really major to add, but I don't know. I just really like how this story explores what each of those different relationships mean.
yeah.
Um, I don't know. I always like kind of alternate universe sort of stuff that
Hmm.
just takes like a certain thing and changes it, and so this is just a mini version of all of those.
Hmm.
Um, I I guess I'm a little curious whether there's kind of a rhyme or reason to the order of this. Um,
I don't know, honestly. I was actually thinking about that, and for the life of me, I'm not really sure what it is.
cause I can kind of think like, I guess the one I would expect to be gone first would be Rainbow traditionally, just because she's like, oh, this,
Yeah.
the spark, or maybe even the last one, which would be interesting. But it's just interesting because basically the first couple of chapters are very similar to um the first one. Like
Hmm.
the second one is like exactly the same almost, and the third one is very similar still.
Hmm.
But then suddenly, oh, their names are different and whatever with the rainbow one. It's just very interesting. And then it kind of, and then like, oh, like the no rainbow and the no pinky ones are very similar too. It's kind of interesting how
Yeah.
it goes in waves a little bit. Um,
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
just the way it's structured. And I could imagine, like, I do like the way it's structured and the order that it uses, but it's just interesting to think of different ways it could be done. And I wonder, it'd be interesting to talk to Skirts to see if he had as a reason, like, for why
Mm.
these in particular were done.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see a lemur rambles on this
Oh,
story for sure.
absolutely, absolutely.
I would love that.
I think this would be well suited to that.
Mhm.
And yeah, it hurts, but it's one of those, it's kind of this format of this 20,000 word skirts fic where it has this core idea and it boils down to, Twilight's love for her friends. And
Mhm.
speaking of that, well, we'll not
Yeah,
get onto it just yet, but I
yeah.
want to ask, where in your skirts fic rankings, how good of a fic is this?
This
Is
is,
this,
I don't know. I
is this like
really
a
like
good
this
fic or
story.
a fucking
Yeah,
good fic?
it's so, I don't know. For those of you, I don't think anybody that actually know this. But maybe a few of you do. My top favorite stories on the site. I have like my favorites, but I have a top favorites shelf
Oh,
where I save ebook copies of my favorite ones, and this one is one of those.
hmm.
As far as like within skirts and stuff, I don't know. I still haven't updated that list that I keep talking about. So I don't know, but it's definitely towards the top. I had really forgotten how strong the story really is. Because again, I read it once, almost 3 years ago, over 3 years ago now. Holy shit! Oh my god, I'm old. And
Right.
yes, and I remember really liking it at the time. But I made my skirts list way after. So
Right.
I don't know. It's maybe not top 10, but pretty damn close, if not.
It's definitely a really good one.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's definitely up there for me when I think of like, oh, what are the great like kind of cerebrally, I love that word. It's an exploration of these characters and their psyche and stuff. I love that sort of stuff. I don't
Yeah.
care about all the wandering around in a big, you know, place like
Mhm.
scale or something, but I love these kind of like character explorations and I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good fic. I would probably think about this. I'd probably give it 1 star out of 6 because that's how many are on Twilight's butt.
Oh, okay. All right.
So, all
Yeah.
right.
Oh, so we can probably go a little bit. How are you free for like a little bit longer than just a
Yeah,
normal
no,
hour?
yeah, this is gonna be a little
Okay.
bit longer. I will eventually
Yeah.
have to go, but we'll
Yeah.
figure this out.
Yeah. I didn't mean to
Um,
like basically tell the entire story
oh
during that
no,
40 minutes.
it's good. It's good. So this other fic we're going to talk about,
Hmm.
it's called Fear and Trembling. It is like 20,000 words. It's another
Yep.
one of these, what I they're kind of what I think of as like mini one shots, which I guess they're like novellas almost.
Hmm.
Except for when you're talking about skirts, the novellas are things like scale. So it's like, come on. So anyway, it's a lovely little short story. Um,
Yeah.
Basically, its genesis was it was a commission sort of fic. Kind of basically what happened was
Sorry.
Skirts posted this blog post where he was like, "Oh, you gotta do this EOP trivia thing," and I think it was like Spike's age at this certain point in the story, and you had to comment. It, and whoever commented it first, they'd get to give Skirts like a prompt, and he'd write the prompt. So fun fact, I was on the website at this time and I was the like second person to like comment the answer and I missed by like 12 seconds. So if I were 12 seconds faster at control effing the EOP document, then this fic would not fucking exist.
Oh, thank you. I guess.
So so this fic exists because of my slowness. so
Nice.
So yeah, it was a prompt from I believe the user is Trail Rain or something, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the name Trail Rain is actually used in the story, which I thought was pretty funny.
Wait, is it? Oh,
Yep,
it is. I
yep,
just remembered. Yes. Okay. Yep.
yep. So
Sorry.
so um, and
Yeah.
then I believe it was bolstered by an idea from our good friend Dream of Ponies, who is in the Lemur Cave chat room, and also the rest of the Lemur or
Sure.
the Noble Jury chat room. So
Yeah.
yeah, this is a nice little fic. It starts off with Twilight sitting in probably Sugar Cube Corner. I think it was. This is basically the same fic as Refraction, but basically Twilight sits in Sugar Cube Corner with well, actually it's Rarity and Rainbow Dash,
Hmm.
and they're talking. Rainbow Dash has just seen this swimmer wave breaker. She's a swimming Pegasi, and she's talking with Rarity about it and saying it's so cool, and Rarity's like kind of taken aback because Rainbow Dash doesn't want to like beat this athlete. She just admires the athlete for how good she is.
Yeah.
And Rarity's talking about making scarves for the upcoming winter, and Rainbow's like, it's summer, you dingus. And so they're kind of talking, but Twilight's a little off. She's not
Mhm.
really into the conversation, and they kind of start to notice. They're like, "Hey, what's up?" And Twilight's like, I got this stuff I need to work on." And so she excuses herself, and she goes back to the library, right?
Mhm.
As she does. And Spike's like, "Hey, have you responded? Have you read that letter from Celestia yet?" And she's like, "Nope, gotta go do that." So she goes upstairs. She's still all weird, and so she reads this note that she's gotten from Celestia, and she's actually read it before. She read it the night before, but she doesn't want to talk about it with any pony. Oh, and I'm gonna say again, spoiler warning.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna spoil the entire fic right now. So this note from Celestia, what it boils down to is there's a great evil that has come into Equestria, and they can't say its name in this, or it'll find out about the note. But it's like infecting ponies with the darkness and the evil and whatnot. But Celestia is not infected, and Twilight is not infected, and so they can still fight it. But the problem here is that the elements of harmony besides Twilight, they've all become infected by this darkness. So what she needs to do here, Celestia says, you just need to kill your friends, and the elements of harmony, they'll find new avatars, and it'll carry forth, and harmony will be saved, and everything will be peachy keen. Twilight. And so, yeah, that's kind of that first chapter. You go on second chapter. So basically, Twilight, she's torn. First off, she loves her friends. She doesn't want to kill her friends. So
I can't imagine why.
I can't imagine why she wouldn't want to kill her friends. But for some reason, she doesn't want to kill her friends. But Celestia is like her teacher, her mentor. Celestia is immortal. She doesn't really work on a scale that Twilight can necessarily understand. Of course, this fic is from 2012. It's from pre-Twilicorn.
Yes. Yep.
So she's immortal. So, and Celestia always, even when it doesn't really seem like it's making sense, Celestia always kind of points her in the right direction. She knows what to do. And so, maybe the princess knows what she's doing, and, she shouldn't question it, because it doesn't, she's got to be a good student, and the princess knows what's best. And so she's beating herself up in her head. Then she's like, if I'm going to kill my friends, I might as well, make sure that that's actually what she wants me to do.
Right.
And, maybe, the princess, she knows what she's doing, but maybe she messed up. Maybe there's a different way. Maybe I don't have to kill my friends. And so she writes a letter back, and she's like, "Hey, like, I know you said that I had to do this, but like, I don't. Is there any way that we could find a different way to do this?" And she sends this letter. No, wait. Oh, okay. And then it goes to the next chapter, and she talks to Spike. And she's like, "Hey, I wrote this letter to Celestia. Can you send it?" And he's actually a little bit like hurt. He's like, "Hey, you wrote a letter without me." She's like, I had to do this. It's private." And he's a little hurt, but he sends the letter, and he's anyway. So
can I interrupt real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
So I just want to, as a very kind of tangential side note, there's a line in chapter 2 that actually is like the antithesis of like the big BP quote I put in the live chat earlier.
Yeah.
It says, "There were powers too large, too grand, and too dark for any light to illuminate, much less for any feeble mind to comprehend." It is like a direct like opposite of that quote. I specifically, it's like that's my only note for the story. Was like this line. I'm like,
so
wow, that's
good.
Crazy.
That's so fucking good, because this story came out a month after BP ended. So it's like, it's like, there you go.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's great. So anyway, she sent this letter, and she's gonna work on this report or what. I don't know. She's going about her business. And then Spike's like, "Hey, I got this reply." Spike's like, "Hey, I got this mail." And she's like, okay, just put it on something. And he's like, "No, not from the postman. It's from That's from Celestia. She's like, I just sent that letter like 5 minutes ago. So she's got this letter from Celestia. She goes upstairs and she opens it up. And Celestia's like, no, dude, like, you gotta do this. I understand. Like, you questioned me. You had the audacity to question me. I know what I'm doing, and I need you to do this. We can't wait, or else, it'll spread. You're basically harming Equestria as we know it. And here's this crystal that will harness your magical abilities. Twilight had actually sent some of her spells in the last letter, and she was like, "Hey, can we use any of these or something to make it good?" So Celestia's like, "Here's this crystal. It'll focus your magic power, and you need to take them somewhere secluded, and where no one will find out, and you need to vaporize them."
Yeah, it's
Celestia is all about that vape life.
So it's so nuts.
So
damn it.
So and Twilight comes away from this feeling like shit because she failed the princess because she questioned her. That's not something, Celestia knows what she's doing. Twilight knows that Celestia knows what she's doing, and she's failed her teacher. And if she continues to fuck up, then Equestria is just dead. And second of all, she still needs to kill her friends, which is fun. So she gathers her friends in Sugar Corner maybe or somewhere, and she's like, "Hey, let's go." Celestia is like, "We gotta go to this mountain, Mount Mare, and we go there for further instruction from Celestia because there's something going on." And they're like, "Hey, is this something bad? Is like Discord or something?" And she's like, "If it were bad, I think Celestia would have told me." And so they maybe had some other stuff going on. Rainbow wanted to see this mare Wavebreaker do. Oh, and that's this other part of the story which I totally forgot about. Is that there's this athlete Wavebreaker. She is she's a swimmer and she likes swimming, but at some point in the first few chapters, she goes into Twilight's library and she's like, "Hey, I'm looking for these books on philosophy." And Spike's like, "Hey, why do you want to do that? You're an awesome swimmer," or whatever. And she's like, "My parents," or she, but really her parents, she wants to, go to college and be successful. Study it.
Philosophy. She
study that philosophy in the college and whatnot. And, Twilight's like, "Oh, yeah, that's good. Do that." And then before they leave, I believe, she kind of comes back and she's looking for more philosophy books or stuff. I don't know. Wait, I don't know.
Yeah.
I know this side story, but I don't know when the different bits happen in the story.
The thing with Wavebreaker was in chapter 1, I think, or chapter 2.
Yeah.
Very, very early.
Yeah, but anyway, it's kind of pretty clear that she doesn't really want to do this, but her parents are like, "Yeah, you gotta friggin' do this." So anyway, so that aside, Twilight and the other girls, Spike stays behind, but Twilight and the other girls are on the train. They're going to this Mount Mare, which is off somewhere way out where.
Way out, yeah.
And Twilight, all the girls are talking, and they're really just talking about her scarves again, and that's fun stuff. Twilight's reflecting about stuff. They make it to this little village at the foot of the mountain, or the hoof of the mountain, and they go up there, and Twilight's kind of reflecting on like, wow, like nobody's been here for like forever, and nobody will probably be here for like quite a long time after we're here. And so they walk up this mountain. It's very peaceful for them. All their friends are talking. They got up to this point, and it's like, "Hey, here's where we're gonna have a picnic." I think it was Pinky who's all up into that, and Twilight's like, "Yeah, this is the spot."
Yep.
and so they're setting up for the picnic, and Twilight's kind of sitting off to the side, and she pulls out the crystal. She's got the little crystal from the letter. She's looking at it, and she's like, well, fucking shit. Like I have to do I have to do this.
Yeah.
And so she's looking at it, she's thinking at it, and she basically gets it all to the point where she is about to do this. Like she just needs to channel her magic through it. And she kind of starts paying attention again, and she realizes all 5 of her friends are like standing in front of her, like being like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And she basically just kind of breaks down, and she's like, I love you so much, and I can't do this. And they don't really know what she's talking about, and she kind of mentions something about like, oh, this crystal's a gift from Celestia to make us think of our friendship and stuff. And they're they're a little apprehensive, but they kind of just roll with it. And they're like, Twilight, they just have kind of a nice picnic on the mountain, whatever. Twilight's a little bit out of sorts, but it's nice. Where they go back to Ponyville, and Twilight's like, fucking shit, I can't do that. Like she knows at that point that she cannot just kill her friends, because she loves her friends, and that's really the big point here. As in most of these Skirts fics, is that Twilight loves her friends, and that's such a strong bond. And like, even if Celestia, this immortal, tells her, she just can't do that. So she's like, I'm just gonna go talk to Celestia. I have to tell her, and maybe Celestia is gonna be mad at me, and maybe Celestia is gonna punish me, but I just can't do this. So as she's gonna go on the train, she runs into Applejack and Rainbow Dash, and they're like, "What? Where are you going?" And Twilight's just kind of like, I've got this thing. I gotta go talk to Princess Celestia, and they know she's been acting weird. I can't remember why, but Rainbow Dash exits the scene for some reason, and Applejack is just kind of like, "Hey, what is up?" And Twilight's like, "If I don't come back, you need to send Spike to go live in the Crystal Empire with my brother." And Applejack is just like, "Holy shit, what is going on?" But she's like, "Yeah, I'll keep this a secret." But I don't know. So that's Twilight's preparation. So she goes to Camelot to talk to Princess Celestia. She goes into the castle. The guards, they kind of recognize her or whatever. That's fine.
Yeah, they're just kind of like,
"Hey, Twilight."
Yeah, basically.
"What's up?" So she goes in there, and she talks to and she's like, "Princess Celestia, I cannot kill my friends." And Princess Celestia is like, "That's great. Why the fuck would you kill your friends?" Like, Princess Celestia is like, that's awesome. I don't know why you're telling me this.
Yeah.
And Twilight's like, what? And Twilight's like, "What are you talking about? You sent me this letter. You sent me this other letter. You gave me this freaking crystal. You told me I had to kill my friends." So Celestia, she's like, "Do you have these letters on you?" And so Twilight pulls them out. She shows them to Celestia, and Celestia is like, she's like, "Well, this is a pretty convincing forgery, but I did not write this." So
what? I did not write this.
I did not write this. What? I did not write this. And so Twilight's just kind of at a loss. She's just like, "Oh my god!" And Celestia's like, even if I had written this, I'm pretty proud of you, because you stood up to like this tyranny, this like, because killing your friends, that sucks. Like, you were right all along. Like, if I ever told you to kill your friends, like, don't do it. Like, that's not good. And so Twilight's like, she has this confusing moment where like she was expecting Princess Celestia to totally like chew her out, but no, she's totally vindicated. And also, that wasn't Celestia, and she never had to kill her friends in the first place. And like, she came so close to doing it.
Yeah.
But so that happens, and Celestia's like, yeah, we're gonna. I'm gonna look into this because like there's somebody out there like totally trying to mess everything up and whatnot. And so Twilight kind of, it's like, okay, and then she's like, okay, I'm gonna go home. But then like as she's walking the castle, who does she run into? Oh, it's Luna.
Yeah.
And Luna kind of asks her like, oh, what's she here for or something. Anyway, basically Twilight, I don't remember the details of their conversation, but basically Twilight figures out that no, Luna was telling a story about Trail Rain, who was this commander who was basically like with her lunar army and basically helped her be evil.
Yep.
And kill ponies and stuff. And basically she starts telling Twilight this whole like lesson about like, oh, like evil and don't do it. Don't do the evil. And and Twilight's like, I don't get why and then she realizes, oh, it was Luna. Luna sent her this thing. Luna was like, hey, you should kill your friends. And it was all a big test whether Twilight was good, I guess, you know, because basically the whole gist of it is like Celestia, Luna's like, oh, you know, Celestia's a good teacher, but she doesn't teach you like the whole, you know, all the dark stuff, you know, you got to be ready for when the bad shit happens. You got to learn to think on your feet when you got to kill your friends.
Yeah,
and
I think yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, go on. No.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think like the big thing that kind of came away from that was like you can't just blindly follow whoever is like in charge of you. You have to think for yourself. That's
right.
Kind of the gist.
Yeah, you gotta just because you know Celestia is an immortal just doesn't mean she can't fuck up. Mm-hmm. She's fucked up way more times than you have because she's lived for a fuck ton of years, and so Twilight is like mad, but like also like, you know. Is that just where it ends? And I can't remember.
No. So what happens? So, yeah, it goes back to Twilight heads back home.
Yeah, you want to remember that? Yeah. So Twilight. She walks back to. She takes the train back to Ponyville. She gets to the library and Spike's like, well, how'd it go? But also like Wavebreaker's there, and she's trying to figure out these philosophy books, and she's just really not getting it. And she's like, hey, I need some help with this shit. And Twilight, she just looks at her and she's like, just don't do it. And Wavebreaker's like, what? But I got it. My parents. And she's like, no, fuck your parents. Like, you just got to do what you want to do. You only got one life.
Yeah.
And you got to go swim. And Wavebreaker's like, that's awesome. And I think that's how it ends. I think that is how it ends.
That's basically how it ends. I don't remember if there's any other details.
No. She goes and talks. She talks to her. Oh yeah, her friends show up and they're like, "How was it?" And Twilight's like, "Everything is fine." And so that's Fear and Trembling in a nutshell. Somehow this story is completely unmemorable to everybody who's ever read it.
Yeah.
Like literally, like, so I've read this story like at least 3 times, maybe 4, and like every time I scroll through Skirts Fix, I'm like, hey, what's this fic? I don't remember what this fic is about. Is this The Numbers Don't Lie? Is this Refraction? I legitimately don't know. But yeah, but I actually think that this is. It's not like the best Skirts fic by any means, but it's definitely a strong. It's a strong idea with a pretty strong execution, at least from my perspective.
Yeah.
It has an awesome twist, at least to me, because every time I've read it, I have forgotten what the twist was, and I'm like, holy shit, it was her. Like, it has a twist and that has another twist, and I'm like, fuck. Because I forget all of it. I just forget all of it. And so this is a really enjoyable story to like just forget about for a few months and then read again. I do want to, of course, point out the parallels, the biblical connection to like, oh, it's kind of like the Abraham and Isaac story, but a little bit different. But
Yeah.
it's the whole like, oh, sacrifice the friends and take them up to the mountain, you know.
Hmm.
In this story, the mountain's called Mount Mer, and I believe the biblical mountain is Mount Moriah or something.
That sounds right. I don't remember the top of my head.
I don't know. I'm a heathen, but base, but so I don't know. I think I don't think it's like I came into like when I started reading the story and I kind of vaguely remembered the plot. I was like, oh yeah, this is totally going to be an Abraham and Isaac thing. But then it like subverted that, which I was happy about because I could actually absolutely imagine a fic where Twilight like kills her friends and then like afterward goes to Celestia and Celestia's like, you didn't have to do that, which I think would be a more shocking fic, but probably a much weaker fic.
Yeah, I agree.
But also, actually, that might be a funny parody fic.
Oh god.
I should talk to Super Trampoline.
No. Oh my god.
But
Oh god. He'd do it too in a heartbeat.
oh, I know, it'd be good. But so yeah, I don't know. Do you have any major thoughts about the whole Fear and Trembling?
What story is that?
It's Skirts'
Um,
background pony.
yeah, it's so true. Like actually, we were talking about for the audience, we were talking about that earlier. We're just like, yeah, this is like the Lyra of Skirts' stories because we had both read it and neither of us remembered what it was about.
Yeah, I
Um,
feel like we had a running gag for a while before we reread it, where we're like,
yeah,
"Hey, Fear and
yeah, we
Trembling,
did.
what is that fic?" Because
Yeah,
we legitimately did not know.
hmm
I
yeah,
hope that now I'll remember it, but maybe I won't, and
yeah.
that's certainly
Yeah,
possible. And that's not to say it's a bad fic by any means, and maybe in some respects it is a little bit generic in its just kind of like, oh, Twilight realizes her love for her friends because of X trial. Um,
yeah,
and maybe it's a little Twilight centric in that it kind of focuses a whole lot on Twilight, like brooding about like
yeah.
Celestia, but like I don't know. I thought it was a fairly enjoyable fic. It,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
I like the idea
I
behind
liked
it.
it. Yeah, I like the idea behind it. Not one of my like favorite things he's written, but like definitely, it's solid, like for sure.
Oh yeah.
Um, and it
Um,
could have been with anyone else writing it. It would could have been a lot worse.
right,
So
right.
yeah, I think it's solid. Like I said, not one of my favorites, but
Especially for a fic with like that was based on like a prompt, and I
yeah,
believe the prompt from the original prompter was actually just I think it's Celestia trolls Twilight, and
yeah,
also including my friend's OC, which is Wavebreaker.
yeah,
And then the idea from Dream of Ponies was, oh, Celestia asks Twilight to kill her friends.
hmm
Um, so it was kind of those two mashed together. I do actually want to point out, I don't know if you probably read the synopses of Ponymonium that Skirts posted to the Lemur
Oh
Cave.
my god, I want that. So wait, when did he
He
post that?
he's actually done it twice. Once very recently, and once like last May or April or something.
Oh,
But
I kind of remember the
but
synopsis, but like not
anyway,
really.
there's a big part of it where like, oh, like one idea he had for the ending was that Celestia had sent Twilight to the moon as kind of a test for her becoming an alicorn. And it was this very punishing test that kind of, as I was reading this, I was kind of reminded of that idea of like, oh, like the alicorns like testing Twilight in this very like cruel. This is much, much less cruel, but like just in a very cruel, like immortal way of like, oh, here's how you learn the lesson. Of course, it would have been more like that if like she actually killed her friends.
Yeah.
So
I'm looking at the at like the scroll back in
right,
Lemur Cave, and he actually explains doors that you can't come back from, which
Yep.
is interesting.
Yeah, no, he
Which
went and
I had
explained
not,
a few of
yeah,
them.
yeah, I had actually not read that synopsis before.
Oh. Yeah,
I
no,
don't
it's
see
definitely worth checking out. We should
yeah, I
probably
don't.
compile this somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We should probably do that. I
Just,
don't see the Pony one though.
I can send you some stuff
Okay.
later. But
Sweet.
anyway, yeah, I mean, again, this isn't like my top favorite
Oh, there
skirts
it is.
fic, but it's kind of in this kind of category of what I would say is this really good format for skirts fics. It's these 20,000 word fics.
Yeah.
Refraction, Fear and Trembling, The Numbers
Mhm.
Don't Lie, When I Was 30, Herald, Icebergs. There's all these Apple Loader. It's just a really good. There's some really serious stuff in there. There's some really funny versions of that, but it's just this really like condensed like. It's a really good. It's more than like just a quick one shot, but it's not just like a giant massive novel like he likes to go into. So
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
it's the type of thing I'm really a fan of. I would probably give this fic. Well, actually, before I give this fic rating, I want to hear what you know. You said it's kind of a mid tier, probably.
For me it is. I think maybe
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'm like a bit jaded or something, but like, this was written. This is actually the first story that he posted after I joined the site.
When you
Fun fact.
right.
Um, yeah, so he had previously done chapters of Big Dumb Object actually a couple days before,
Mm-hmm.
and then he posted this I think December 2nd or December 3rd. So given I don't know, like I guess like for that time that like he posted it, this was probably like way like up
Mm-hmm.
on
There's
his
just a
on
lot
his
since there.
yeah. And if I feel like I'm trying to remember, I feel like there was like a thread on like I don't know if it was Ponychan or something, but I feel like there was a thread at one point where he like listed like his favorite things he written, and this was like 2012, 2013 that he did
Mm-hmm.
that. I have no idea where the link for that might possibly be. But I remember the story being high up there, and
Hmm.
given the other stories that had come out since then, that had come out before then,
Right.
I would probably agree. But that being said, given everything he's written since, I'm not sure. Like it doesn't hold true anymore. Like for that era, I guess like that time, things
Mm-hmm.
like Hello Sedna is still like one of my favorite stories that he's
Oh
done.
yeah, that's definitely
Um,
around the same time,
yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah, it was like yeah. What else was there? Oh, Last Tears in Tartarus. We talked
Mm-hmm.
about BP, that sort of thing. Um, but
Icebergs.
yeah, 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 icebergs. Yeah, so I reading it for what was essentially the first time,
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed it, um, but I don't feel bad about not putting it in like my top favorites or like my
Right.
favorite things that he's only because I feel like he's written much better things since. But that being said, I did enjoy reading it. It's a solid story. I would put it like mid tier, I think.
Oh man, so I just opened up the "What's Wrong with the Lemur" drivel
Yep,
just
I've
to
been looking at that.
read off of it. So
Yeah,
I want to read the ones for this, and maybe then you can read the ones
refraction. Yeah,
for refraction. Yeah. So
yeah,
for this
sure.
fic, skirt said is a twisted quote unquote attempt at a reader's story prompt. It is pretentious commentary on Soren Kierkegaard's Fear and Trembling, which actually I did not remember that was the source of the title, but
Yep.
it is. It's a book.
Yeah, there's actually a very horrible pun that he makes about the author name in like chapter one.
Oh, I do remember that actually.
Yeah,
Luna's a cold-hearted motherfucker, and Twilight sobs at the drop of a bit.
yeah,
And so
true
that's this
facts.
story for you, in the words of the lemur himself.
Mhm. Um, where is that? Yes, the one for refraction has. Where is that? Oh, I don't see it. Oh my god, I don't see it. It's somewhere. I
well,
know it's somewhere around here.
well, that's the
Um,
podcast. Thank you, everybody.
no, hold on, wait. I will find this. Shit. Well, the problem is all the pictures are. So, for those of you who don't know, this is a blog post that he published, like what, or late 2014, I think.
Something like that.
Late 2014, where he talks
Yeah,
about
November.
he basically just talks shit about all of his stories that he published. But the problem is the picture formatting was updated somewhat recently, so all the pictures are broken. I am trying to find, because I was reading this earlier, and
Is it on there?
it is in there.
I did find it.
Oh,
I
there
did
it is.
find
There it is. Yes. Yeah. Apple Jewel's too much of a female dog. What real difference does Pinkamin's existence have in the universal continuity? First two chapters are lazily identical, and Future Twilight has a hard-on for insanely brutal quote-unquote experiments.
And see, interestingly, those are actually the same criticisms I would have of that story, even though I do like it as a story.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I think those are pretty fair criticisms.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say that I would give Fear and Trembling 0 out of 5 dead friends.
Wow. Wow. All right. Cool.
So, thank you for listening to our stupidly extended Big Dumb podcast. This podcast was even bigger and even dumber than the last two. Mm-hmm. But thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. I think, did you say we're taking next week off? You got stuff?
Yeah, I will be out of state, and I probably will not have access to like actual podcast.
You will be out of continent.
I mean, no.
Technically,
I will be, sort of.
But we'll technically be out of continent. We are launching him into space.
Yep.
It's been fun.
Yeah, I just got my Tesla Roadster. I'm gonna be the first human to go up.
You can play some Pink Floyd in your car
on a road trip. What?
Dark Side of the Moon.
Of course, Dark Side of the Moon. What else do I play?
Animals.
How dare you?
But thank you so much. We will be going, but we will be back probably 2 weeks from now to talk about some more.
If you want to do that Friday instead of the Saturday,
might be up for that.
Might work.
We'll see.
That might work.
Anyway, we'll keep you posted on our happenings.
Yeah.
And we'll be around. If you have any suggestions for fics that you'd like us to talk about, then please drop us a line. They do not have to be skirts fics. I know we've been
recommended. What?
I know we've been massaging our collective skirts boner for the last 3 episodes, but we can actually talk about other fan fiction too. So that's what I got. Anything you'd like to say before we sign off?
Remember to drink your Dr. Pepper.
Yeah. Click the button. Or go offline, quick.
Oh, well, that's me.
Before they realize that we suck.
Yeah.